G'day, my name is Dave, and in this vlog I'll be discussing the concept of postmodernism and how it relates to pop culture. Postmodernism is a movement that arose in the late 19th century, and it was a reaction to and rejection of the modernist way of thinking, which was dominant in the Western world at the time. Now, the key elements of modernist thinking that postmodernism rejects are these grand narratives, namely science, religion, and history, and these were seen as absolute truths that we could use to evaluate and explain and articulate the human condition. Although we're obviously looking at postmodernism from the perspective of pop culture studies, Jones and Holmes are quick to point out in their book Key Concepts in Media and Communication that postmodernism is a very broad and encompassing term. Jay Story also emphasises this point in his 2008 book Cultural Theory in Popular Culture: An Introduction, where it refers to the work of a chap by the name of Dick Hebdige, who in 1988 drew up a list of a variety of things that have been described as postmodern, and these range from things like the design of a building, music, TV commercial, right through to things like the decline of university and the predicament of reflexivity. So on to our particular area of study, culture. So postmodernism deals with culture in a very different way to modernism. In the late 19th century, to be cultured was to be familiar with the best that's been thought and said. And this is an idea advocated strongly for by a bloke named Matthew Arnold. So if one considered themselves an Arnoldian thinker, if you will, they might believe that only things like the ballet, the opera, and fine art to be true cultural pursuits. In terms of pop culture, there's four stylistic elements of a text that determine whether it is, or whether it isn't, in fact, a postmodern work, and these are what I find to be most helpful in determining that fact. The first one is pastiche, and this is basically a tipping of the hat to another work. So it's not ripping it off or blatantly copying it with no reference, it's a respectful homage to a work that's greatly appreciated. Next up, you've got parody. Now this is quite similar to pastiche in that it involves copying another work, but it's done in a very disrespectful way. For comic effect. It's usually done blatantly and in a very exaggerated manner. So the Family Guy Star Wars clip that we watched in class is a good example of this. So too are the films Spaceballs and Spinal Tap. Your next element is intertextuality. Parody and pastiche are both examples of this. Basically, intertextuality is any reference to a text in order to give shape and meaning to another one. So it's usually done by sort of borrowing underlying principles and things like that. Finally, you've got self-reflexivity. Now, this is basically when a text refers to itself in order to show that it's aware of its own construction. It's indicative of the playful nature of postmodernist thinking. A good example of this is when in a film or TV show, an actor speaks to the camera, breaks the fourth wall, and speaks as the actor, as the person portraying that character within the film. Now, one of the best examples of postmodern pop culture is, of course, The Simpsons. And it is so because it really does embody all four of those stylistic aspects that define what a postmodern text is. So much of the humour of the show is derived from parody. The best example, probably, of this is the Treehouse of Horror episodes, where they'll, more often than not, retell the story of a horror movie using the Simpsons characters as the cast. They also do that quite often in just general historical tales. Pastiche is also ridiculously extensively used in The Simpsons, and the most common way they do that is just showing one tiny little scene within the episode framed in the exact same way that a famous movie does. The movie has no bearing on the plot of the episode. It's just a gentle, respectful nod to text they really appreciate. Now, obviously, this parody and pastiche, they're both great examples of the intertextuality that's rife within the show. But it's not just movies and other TV shows and so on. They've referred to the Bible quite a lot, Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven, and also the Constitution of the United States is often brought up. So they're constantly referring to other texts. There's also great self-reflexivity in The Simpsons, a good example of which is the name of the town in which the show is set, Springfield. It was deliberately chosen by the creators for its ambiguity. There's a lot of Springfields in the United States, and so as the show's popularity grew, the fans really wanted to know after which actual town the fictional Springfield was named. And as the seasons have rolled on, the creators have written jokes into the show that play with the audience's desire to know where exactly the real Springfield is. So that's basically my take on postmodernism, what it is, what it means, and why The Simpsons is a great example of it. So I hope you've enjoyed it.